Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Violet Gibson, the woman who shot Benito Mussolini. Who was she? And what led this well-born Anglo-Irish woman to attempt the assassination of one of history's most infamous dictators? Her story is a fascinating, complex, and ultimately tragic journey that deserves to be told. Violet Albina Gibson was born in Dublin, Ireland, in 1876 into a world of immense privilege. Her father, Edward Gibson, was a brilliant lawyer and politician who would become the first Baron Ashbourne, Lord Chancellor of Ireland. Violet grew up surrounded by aristocracy, moving between grand homes in Dublin and London. She was presented at court to Queen Victoria, a debutante in the highest echelons of British society. But from an early age, it was clear that Violet was not destined for a conventional life. She was intelligent, fiercely independent, and deeply spiritual. Unlike her peers, she wasn't content with society balls and advantageous marriages. She was drawn to philosophy, religion, and social justice. In her youth, she explored various belief systems, including Christian Science and Theosophy, a spiritual movement that sought to uncover a hidden universal truth. Her spiritual quest eventually led her to Roman Catholicism, which she converted to at the age of 26. This was a significant and somewhat rebellious act for someone from a staunchly Protestant, Anglo-Irish background. Her faith became the central pillar of her life, but it was a faith marked by intense, almost ascetic devotion. She spent time in convents and dedicated herself to pacifist and humanitarian causes. However, beneath this spiritual surface, Violet's life was shadowed by personal struggles. She suffered from recurring health problems, including bouts of pleurisy and peritonitis. More significantly, she battled with her mental health. In her mid-40s, she experienced a severe breakdown and was certified insane, spending 2 years in a private asylum. Even after her release, she continued to be plagued by what we might now recognize as severe depression or other complex mental health conditions. In the early 1920s, Violet moved to Rome, the heart of her beloved Catholic faith. But the city she found was changing. It was the epicenter of a new aggressive political movement, fascism. Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, was consolidating his power, his black-shirted followers marching through the streets, silencing dissent with intimidation and violence. For Violet, a devout pacifist who believed in the sanctity of human life, Mussolini's regime was an abomination. Her diaries and letters from this period reveal a growing obsession with the idea that God had chosen her for a special mission. She came to believe that assassinating Mussolini was a divine calling, a necessary act to prevent a greater evil and save countless lives. Her conviction was so strong that she wrote in her notes, "To kill a tyrant is not a crime." On the morning of April 7, 1926, Violet Gibson made her move. She armed herself with a small revolver, wrapped it in a black shawl, and tucked a stone into her pocket to break Mussolini's car window if necessary. She went to the Piazza del Campidoglio, where Mussolini had just finished giving a speech to a group of surgeons. As Il Duce walked through the crowd, greeting his supporters, Violet stepped forward. She raised the gun and fired. The shot rang out. But at that exact moment, Mussolini turned his head to acknowledge a cheer from the crowd. The bullet, instead of hitting him squarely in the head, grazed his nose, taking off a small piece of the tip. It was a matter of millimeters, a fraction of a second, that saved his life. The gun jammed as she tried to fire a second time. Immediately, the crowd descended upon her. They were a furious mob, ready to lynch her on the spot. It was only the swift intervention of the police that saved her from being torn apart. They dragged her away, bruised and battered, to the police station. The aftermath was surreal. Mussolini, with a bandage on his nose, dismissed the attempt as a trifle. He famously quipped, "The bullets pass, Mussolini remains." He used the incident to his advantage, portraying himself as invincible, protected by destiny. The fascist propaganda machine went into overdrive elevating him to near mythical status. The assassination attempt, far from toppling him, actually helped solidify his power and justify an even harsher crackdown on his opponents. So what happened to Violet? The Italian authorities were in a bind. Prosecuting a well-connected British subject was diplomatically tricky. After a brief period of interrogation, where she calmly stated her motives, a deal was struck. To avoid a public trial that might give a platform to anti-fascist sentiment, Violet was declared a chronic paranoiac. She was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial and was quietly deported back to Britain, on the condition that she be committed to a mental institution for the rest of her life. And so, the woman who almost changed the course of history was erased from it. At the age of 50, Violet Gibson was admitted to St. Andrew's Hospital, a mental asylum in Northampton, England. The doors closed behind her, and for the next 30 years, she was a prisoner. Her family, embarrassed by the scandal, largely abandoned her. Her repeated pleas for release were ignored. She wrote letters. She begged to be allowed to live in a small cottage, but the Home Office files were stamped, "Never to be released." Violet Gibson died in the asylum in 1956. At the age of 79, she was buried in a simple, unmarked grave in Northampton. For decades, her story was little more than a bizarre footnote in the biography of a dictator. She was dismissed as a mad, hysterical spinster. But in recent years, historians and writers have begun to re-examine her life. Was she simply mad? Or was she a politically astute and courageous woman, driven to an extreme act by her conscience? Her actions, though they failed, were born from a deep-seated belief in peace and justice. She saw the danger Mussolini posed to the world long before many world leaders did. She wasn't an anarchist or a political operative. She was a private citizen who believed she had a moral duty to act. Her story forces us to ask difficult questions about sanity, sacrifice, and political violence. It highlights the uncomfortable way society, both then and now, often uses labels of mental illness to dismiss inconvenient or radical women. In 2021, the Dublin City Council approved a motion to erect a commemorative plaque in her honor, finally recognizing her as a committed anti-fascist. It's a small but significant step in reclaiming the story of Violet Gibson, not as a madwoman, but as a complex and brave individual who dared to stand up to tyranny, even if it cost her everything. Her life may have ended in silence and obscurity, but her shot, the shot that almost changed the world, deserves to be heard. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. See you next time.